Welcome to What's My Thesis. I'm your host.
Maybe I should do it.
Do you want to do it? Okay. Welcome to What's My Thesis.
Welcome to What's My Thesis. I'm your host, Molly Schulman.
And today your guest is?
Javier Proenza.
Oh, nicely done. And this is episode 200. So thank you guys for, if you've watched an episode of the last 200, I appreciate it. or listen to, you don't have to watch them. But yeah, we're doing this a little bit of a change up so that I get to do even less than I usually do when I do interview people.
Slacker.
Yeah. I like someone one time told me that or referenced Larry King from Larry King Live, who like notoriously does no research on people before he has them on. And I got a little offended, but then I had to acknowledge that it was.
He got Me Too'd also.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
I mean, his whole thing was
and then he died.
Wait, he's
Is he dead? I don't know. You should fact check every single thing that I say.
Yeah, let's not kill Larry King on episode 200. Okay. I don't actually know. That's a great question. Let us know in the comments, as if we haven't found out by now. By the time the episode comes out.
Okay.
Oh, we're going straight into the questions?
No.
Oh, okay.
I have just a few notes. I just keep looking at them.
Okay. All right. It seemed like you were lining up.
No.
Well, do you want to ask me about my childhood and where I grew up? Because actually that is... You shook your head.
Wait, what did we just say? Larry King Live? Yeah, that's not a good comparison.
To what? To me?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's aside from the Me Too thing, yeah, I think it's pretty fair. It's hard to keep track nowadays which of the creeps has been busted and which has not.
Yeah, it is hard to keep track. Yeah.
But yeah, I love that you said that he was a creep, but then you immediately murdered him.
I have a feeling he's dead.
Okay. We're not spreading misinformation, YouTube. We actually don't know.
I have a feeling.
You have a feeling that he's dead. No, I mean, I think it's fair because basically the whole format is that like I have a set series of questions, or like the show basically is just like I ask you about where you grew up and then what you want to talk about. And then from there, I ask questions, which honestly doesn't require a lot of preparation. But the way I like to think about it is that I'm a producer on the fly.
On the fly.
You know, where I have to
I am a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. So I did a tiny bit of research, very little, as required to be on the show. Oh, because you were saying he doesn't do research. Yes, I have questions about research.
Oh, okay.
So I went to your very first episode.
Oh, Jesus.
And it was about, and I had to write this down because I would forget, futurism, fascism, and the avant-garde. That was the first episode.
Yeah, well, I mean, technically,
no.
If we're being real, there was another first episode with my co-host early on because I used to have a co-host.
Uh-huh.
And then we're not like perpetually beefing, but once it became my show, which it kind of already was, because I think he felt that way. Like the title was mine, the premise was mine, all of it, and he was just frustrated that he didn't have a lot of creative input. So when he left, I was just like, we're gonna reorder the episodes. So that became the first episode. Originally, the first one was about Icelandic sagas, but I liked making the futurism the first one just because it's an interesting topic to me particularly. Mm-hmm. And we're literally looking at some of my pieces that are related to that kind of futurist architecture of the Antonio Sant'Elia stuff. So yeah, but I mean, maybe I should have just pretended like that was always the first episode.
Everyone can listen if they want to.
Yeah.
But that's a very old episode. The first episode, you know, in terms of the record.
Officially,
the official record. But it's a really good title. But I think, okay, so it seems like way back then in 2018, you were doing quite a bit of research for your episodes. And it also seems like over the course of time, you sort of figured out how to make this project more sustainable for you.
Yeah.
And it's evolved maybe naturally, but also now you're sitting at your house.
Yeah, I know, right? Remember
we come to you.
Remember that crazy time when I was like doing it everywhere, and I was like, why am I doing this? No one's even watching it on YouTube.
But I think that that's valid, because when you take on a project, it's just going to be so much work initially. And then you have to slowly figure out how to make it work for you.
Yeah.
How to make it actually not exhaust you and make you resentful. And just be a fun project where you're getting something out of it.
I'm flashing back to the conversation we had just before we started recording when you say the resentful part. No, that is very true. One of the things that I have learned is that sometimes artists are insufferable pricks. And like, no, I mean, in terms of resentment and all of that, it's interesting. To go back to where like the whole structure of it is I used to do research. It was originally modeled off of somebody else's podcast. I think it was The Dollop at the time. And it would be one guy was the dumb guy, and then the other guy would present the topic and kind of torture them with how horrible history is.
Okay.
This is, the format doesn't have to do with that element of it, but so then what we decided to do is that he was going to present a topic, then I was going to present a topic. And then that got very difficult very quickly, which led to him.
Meaning because
of all the research and all that. Like, it was
seemed
just
like a
extra
tremendous, and it was just the two of you having
it,
a back and forth. One of you did all the research and had the information. The other one sort of asked the questions.
Yeah. And then, and it was just, and also the co-editing with people is pretty difficult because.
Did you also do video then as well?
No, it was just audio.
Yeah.
But then when we split up, I basically just kind of kept the format where I was just going to be the dummy. And well, I mean, the least informed person.
I would also take on that role.
No, it's a very comfortable one, right?
But as I recall, so you did the first several episodes with this other person.
Yeah, and then I would do the 3-hour interview. I would have people on, and then I would talk to them for 3 hours and split that into 2 episodes, which was great for saving effort, but realistically talking for 3 hours,
it was too much.
It was just basically me talking the last hour.
Got it.
Because the person was worn out, or didn't, so then it became a thing of like, it would be like my episode, their episode, my episode, which was just a way of like, but then I think it was after George Floyd, the whole situation, not to like pinpoint it down, but there was like a very big move at that time to be like more conscious with who you book, because up until then I was like having 26 maximum people a year in that format.
26 every other week.
Every other week, so it's like half of the year, right? So so at that point, that's when I realized like we need to be a little bit more aware of who we're talking to, and then after that, the show, I feel like, is where it started to get more interesting. It became much more difficult because I had to do like an episode a week. Now, if I want to have episodes, like a bank of episodes, like right now I'm exhausted because I've been doing 2 a week, which doesn't sound like much.
As you lose your voice.
but it's like, it's performing. So it like, and then it's making people feel comfortable and all of those things that sometimes I succeed and sometimes I don't. But most of the time people are happy, There's people that don't talk to me. Their episodes are out and don't talk to me. Like, that's fine,
Okay.
And are literally mad at me. But, it's just how this kind of thing goes. You're not going to, like, out of 200 people you meet, you're not necessarily going to get along with everybody.
Right. Well, I don't know. I mean.
Oh, you do?
No.
No, the stakes are really high for people when they do this. This is not like a normal conversation setup. People feel very vulnerable.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stress about what you're allowed to say. So that makes total perfect sense. But like we were talking a little bit off air, is that most of the time people get self-conscious more than they are aware, more than they are afraid of like saying something that is like, like one time someone was like, hey, I'm a little worried about the talk about Nazis in the episode. And I was like, well, you don't like Nazis, right? secretly like Nazis? And like, no. Okay, so then it didn't come out that way. Like I think people feel like they come off a certain way, but like if they don't have that belief system, like, and a lot of times it surprises me when people are like, hey, I'm worried. I mean, and I'm always happy to cut stuff out because like I said, this is a PR show, but yeah. So, I mean, I think it was that was like the heyday of early this podcast was the time between like I stopped doing split episodes, like 3-hour episodes that were split in two, and started just doing like, because each episode was more consistent and more interesting. So,
okay.
Yeah.
But there's also a moment when it became less research based. So
yeah, I definitely dropped it out of the title. It was just intimidating people.
It was in the title?
Or in the intro. I used to say, explore and expand our worldview through research. And then I just started saying, explore and expand our worldview. And then when I got on YouTube, it's just, welcome to What's My Thesis? I'm your host, Javier Proenza. And today my guest is this, because no one gives a shit.
Okay, got it.
But yeah, I think that people started, like when I've edited the invite prompt a few times. And when people started to really comment on being stressed out, I've also had people get mad at me feeling like it was exploitative because I asked them to do research when I was like really just like, I think that like that word means a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
Research?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just going to recall my first episode, I think, was when we were at Cirrus Gallery.
Yeah, that was a live show. That never really was the format of the thing.
Okay. But you gave me a topic.
Which
was the singularity.
Yeah.
And I had no idea about it.
And I presented it that one.
But I was the dummy.
Yeah. But remember,
which I was happy to be the dummy. I didn't know about it, but I was glad to read a little bit about it. And I mean, I had a fun time. I thought it was totally
what do you think? Do you think that we're all going to become a digital consciousness?
We're there. I mean, I don't know. I can't even talk about it. I still can't. How many years? When was that?
That was like 2019, maybe.
Okay.
I would say. That's a guess. It's 18 or 19.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's definitely pre-pandemic, which is when I stopped doing the show entirely. But
pre-pandemic stopped. Oh, okay. So you had some hiatuses.
Yeah. I stopped for like a long time. I stopped for like 6 months, I think. And then I started up again and I stopped for another 6 months because I wasn't ready to get there's so many different plates to spin that you forget about, or I try to forget about.
Okay. Well, what podcasts were you listening to before you started the show?
Comedy.
Comedy.
Just comedy stuff. And it was around the time where podcasts started to become like in the 2010s, right? When Mark Maron kind of became the king of podcasting and whatnot, pre Joe Rogan's rise to stardom. It was, there was a lot of just straight up goofy, silly comedy stuff. Like that was the first wave of, every comedian had one. And then slowly it started to transition. A lot of those podcasts aren't even around anymore. Those people have pivoted. For example, the one that I mentioned, The Dollop, that guy used to do a show that I never listened to called Walking the Room. His name is Dave Anthony. I'm not really a huge fan of The Dollop anymore. I just kind of feel like political stuff is always very difficult to do.
Is The Dollop political?
It's histor-political, kind of, like it's hard not to talk about history without politics.
Okay.
But around that time, around when I started the show, that was there was like shows like My Favorite Murder and all of these shows that were like comedy / informational. And so then that's kind of where this show, like that generation is where this show was conceived, in that pocket.
Okay. But I don't know. I shouldn't say but. I just keep saying it for a dramatic effect.
That you can be as dramatic as you want. You're the host.
But
I'm on your show.
At some point, you also had this sense that meeting or interviewing people and sort of throwing yourself into the art world by meeting people was somehow going to fill in for a master's or
I feel it has.
in some way. And the title, What's My Thesis, became a sort of education. So I think initially you were thinking you'd educate yourself through research, and then you realized just talking to people.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I hadn't thought about it in a long time, but originally the show was just a way for me and my friend to hang out, you know?
Okay.
And that
didn't work out.
That hurt the friendship.
That didn't work. Okay. But you were also educating yourself because you picked pretty complex topics or subject matter.
There's also, like, you know, I think there's this guy that does hardcore history, Dan Harmon, who talks about how it's like you just basically when you're doing a research show like that, you're doing stuff that I grew up in Italy. I knew who the futurists were, you know, like it was I had read the manifesto before, right? The one of my favorite early ones is the well, like, I mean, I can just list a few that off the top of my head. Lucid Dreaming, I read that book when I was a kid. I wanted to go back and reread it, you know, and
those were 2-parters also, weren't they?
That was a 3-parter.
Whoa.
That one was the editing. That one was kind of where the team up kind of broke off because
it was too much work.
It was too much work, and it's also really hard when you are editing someone else that is your partner to not like be passive aggressive with each other.
I think once you collaborate, it's like traveling with someone. You just find out it's maybe not a good match. Like I felt like, at the time I felt a lot like I was being censored by somebody that wasn't that invested in doing the show, and I was like, I hate NPR. I still do. NPR as an aesthetic, like, you know, even though the show has become much more gentle and whispery. And all of that. NPR has.
No, this show.
Oh, this show? I feel like there's some whisperiness on NPR. Okay.
No, NPR is full whisperiness.
But I think also in a collaborative effort like that, one person ends up doing more work, or somehow the balance is hard to maintain. Yeah,
and also, like, I mean, the difference is that he's not doing a podcast now and I am, right? So like the difference between our interest level is pretty apparent. Like, he didn't stop doing this podcast and go start another one. Like, I'm the one that gives a shit. So it was like, it's hard to be a partner to me when I'm the one that's kind of like invested entirely in it, and my co-host is not, you know. And then I'm like, well, we got to record this weekend, and he's like, I don't care, you know.
Right. Okay. So you guys had different
levels
but also,
of investment.
I mean, I did listen to what seemed like a very generous pass off or announcement when the shift happened. We're
not beefing. Yeah. We just don't hang out, you know, like. No.
But I think this happens, you know, projects just take turns, and it's a lot of, and by the way, it's just an effort of love.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I don't think when he left, I realized also I couldn't bring someone else in and do that to them too. You know, have the expectations of, this is not a hobby. This is something I give a shit about, you know?
Yeah. I sort of feel like it's a happy occurrence, though, because the show to me feels more dynamic, more interesting to just have, you know, a discussion rather than the research. You're sort of reading all this material, and I kind of got lost in it. Re-listening to it recently, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah.
I mean,
it doesn't have the energy that the more recent episodes have.
And then that's one of those things that's funny about like doing something that lasts, you know. I'm like, I would love to go back and listen to my cringe takes back then, but
well, you don't have to. They're out there if anybody else wants to.
But it's interesting to see, to sort of just, I mean, like when you start something like this, it's never going to be perfect from the start, right? So like that early on, what I used to say is that this is not art, this is content. There's a difference, right? And so separating those two was kind of important early on. And you know, related to that, as I'm like right now, I am feeling overwhelmed because my entire social life and work life are tied into the art world, which I never really planned out to be like that. It's just my friends were artists. I interviewed my friends, and then the podcast has like not a huge following, but people are aware of it, right? So it's an interesting thing to like start thinking about the difference between a friend, a colleague, those like little nuances, because sometimes you think you're friends with someone and think you have a pretty good idea of just like having experienced organizing Made in LA and stuff like that. Like there are people that are your friends. There are people that are your friends because you can do something for them. And it can be difficult, whatever they think, because it's not like the show does much for people, but I think people still, I mean, I get that it's better than nothing for people, but it's like, no, I'm seriously like the show. I think people have an idea that this show does better than it does, like, and get very, nervous and think that like, it's going to go out to like hundreds of people,
well, I mean, it's accessible to anybody.
Yeah, but it's like it at this point, like this episode gets 72 downloads, like it's not, I'm just saying it's just funny. I say that not to disparage the effort or the show or anything like that, but it's like, it's not like you're going on a nationally known show. Like basically most of the listenership for the show is in California. Like it's people that all know each other, which is like, it's like, it's super nicheified, right? So I guess it makes sense to be nervous to be on it or how you're going to be represented. But does that make sense? Like, it's just, it's a weird thing because for example, I still think of the show as tiny. We don't have a studio and whatnot. And people take it like very, very seriously. In some instances, like their appearance on it, they get very concerned and whatnot. And like that discrepancy, I think, is something that I'm still working through, like the idea of like what I am and what I actually feel like I am versus what people who have only heard of the show, maybe don't even listen to it, but they're aware, like it's the thing where like you've experienced some of this where like people introduce you as, oh, this is Molly, she does Made in LA.
Well, okay, but you have worked hard at this project for many years now, 2018, like 5 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's growing and it's evolving, and you've met a lot of people. And...
Oh no, this is not a complaint. This is an observation of like
And by the way, you've stuck with it. I feel like there's a bunch of art podcasts that have kind of come and gone.
Like which ones? Name them.
No, I don't know
I want
enough.
the list of the people I've defeated. No, I mean it's funny. It's actually I'm feeling pretty vulnerable just even talking about how I think about it. Because I'm like literally. I mean, I feel like I am disparaging the show a little bit. But I don't.
Maybe that's a little bit of
It's not humility though. Like it really is.
No, it feels like the opposite of humility. It almost feels like you're not giving yourself enough credit.
I'm not making enough money to do that.
Okay. Well, wait. So where were you born? Where are you from?
Well, my mom. I asked that because my mom was very. It's thought it was very important that I share. Well, I've been like watching. So my dad passed. That I've been watching old like family videos, which are
digitized.
Yeah, okay. That are like really, really boring. But it's funny because at this point I'm so Americanized, right? I'm like a full on like, if I was talking to Latinos and we weren't on camera, I could say the word. But white person, like the Latino term for that, that is like a slur. Like I'm straight up that, but I go back and I look at these videos and I'm like, oh my God, like it's like videos of us where back when like Spanish was our first language and we're like these like Latin American kids living in Italy, just by the luck of like my dad basically was working in Costa Rica, and the options that he got for work were like Panama and Italy, you know, and
For what kind of work?
for he's an economist, or he was an economist for the UN.
Okay.
So basically, we could have just like been Latin American kids at that point, right? Like
So you were living in
Costa Rica,
Okay.
and then yeah, it's almost like a lottery ticket, you know. I mean, my dad had credentials and stuff, but I don't really know anybody aside from other people whose parents worked at the UN with my dad who really had like the same kind of like experience, you know, of just having a dad with a crazy fucking job whose job paid for you to travel and all of these crazy wild things, you know. Like so it's interesting to sort of, I don't know, I find LA like to be a really wild town in terms of like just how many different people that are not from here come here, you know, and all the different backgrounds. Like you don't just run into like people that are from LA, right? So
why? Because they're,
well, this is just, I mean, it's a town that draws people in, right? There's a lot of work
Right.
here, or in theory, there's a lot of work. We'll see what happens with that AI and the singularity.
you mean because a lot of people move here?
Yeah, a lot of people
Okay.
move here, you know.
But don't you feel that a lot of Los Angelinos stay here?
Like people that are from here?
Yeah.
Yeah, they stay, but they can't like afford a house.
I mean, I feel like
oh,
sorry. Oh,
you're fine.
can I be? I'm just so close to the microphone. Well, I don't know what I was gonna say. I was gonna say something like, "It's a big city. Why would they leave any big city?"
Well,
you
no.
know.
I don't know. I'm getting a little worn out on LA. We've talked about this.
Okay, so you went to Italy when you were how old?
6 years old.
6.
So
that's
yeah.
I know that age. Okay.
Yeah, you have one.
I have one of those. Okay, so you were 6, and then you have what, 3 siblings?
3 siblings, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, to me the like that basically the point of that is like we were just like a regular Latin American family that we had citizenship, right? Although I don't know if my sister, what her status was, because she was born in Costa Rica, but like,
wait, where were you born?
I was born in DC.
Oh, okay.
So I was born in DC. I lived in Costa Rica, Italy, Miami, which is like the.
Well, wait, you lived in Italy until how old?
12. And then
you moved to Miami?
I didn't really live. I don't have a memory of living in the US until I was 12 years old.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So junior high, I came over. I had a British accent.
British? Because you
Yes.
learned English with a British accent?
Yeah, I went to a British school. My mom was a Cuban lady
cute.
with all these like British speaking kids. It's funny. When I talk to some of my friends from back then, they have like really thick. They still like, even though their accents may be Americanized, they still have that original like. And I always think back to the teachers at our school. Like we went to a really, really awesome private school that like I used to daydream about it being like a boarding school. Like I used to fantasize it just hanging out there. It had an Olympic-sized swimming pool. It had an insane amount of soccer pitches. They made us play rounders and like kind of tried to teach us rugby, but it didn't catch because
rounders.
Rounders is like baseball.
Oh.
But it's like the British form, smaller bat.
Oh.
And like metal bases. It's weird.
Okay.
They never made us play cricket, but yeah. Yeah, so like that's why I find like a lot of American culture so crazy, you know, because I grew up in a culture where like waiter was a good job. They made good money. Everybody was like left Italy in August and they were like, fuck this. It's too hot. Yeah, like good vacation time. So yeah, so like this whole place is very aggressive in its
in comparison.
Yeah.
So you did high school in
Miami.
Yeah. Okay. I know. I feel like you've mentioned your wardrobe.
My wardrobe. My Miami skater raver. Man, those Jinkos were great during the 90s because it was so hot and humid. Just like it's
Just
like wearing
air,
a skirt,
yeah.
you know.
Ventilation.
Yeah.
So when did you start? When were you making art?
See, you're doing a great job. This is basically exactly what I do.
Thank you. That's what I want to hear.
Like those are like two exact questions that I ask. I'm just realizing how formulaic and unnecessary I am on my own show.
AI.
I used to be a poser graph kid, but like in high school, a poser graffiti kid. Like I used to like write in my notebook.
Graph.
Yeah.
Okay.
In Miami, but I think the earliest time I remember having like an aptitude for it, I was in that British school, like in secondary school. So like year 7 or year 8. And
year 7 or 8,
that's like
12, 13 years old.
It's like year, I think they have 13 years instead of 12 grades. So I think 7th grade is 6. I don't remember exactly how the conversion rate is.
Okay.
But yeah. So then
so you were little.
I was little. I mean, I was definitely not 12 yet. So
wait, you were 6 when you moved to Italy, and you were 6 when you started your art career?
No. I didn't start my art career. I started my art education because I mean, Jesus, like that place is insane. I knew.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I knew all the like. I mean that's why I'm starting there because I literally like. It was so impactful on me that I went back. But the first time I really remember having an eye for it, I was painting something, and it was like a woman looking at a car that had crashed, right? So it was the tree, and then the woman's body, and then the car, and it was just like cropped in on her waist and her hand. And I remember being like, "Hey, does this look right?" to my friend, but it was like it wasn't like it was a hand first of all. Which was hard to paint, and it was an awkward position because it was.
Where was this image from?
No, this was just me painting in a painting class.
Oh, okay.
So I don't remember where I came up with it, and then I also made a little. So anyway, that was that like going back. That's the first time where I was like, oh yeah, I can kind of observe in a way that is applicable to art. But I also did get a D in my art class in high school because I was a cool kid. And then I decided to go to art school in earnest after like working corporate in Miami for like a few years. And
what, like post high school?
Yeah, like 2022. So and then I went
2022.
Oh no, it's 2002. Sorry, take it
2002.
Yeah,
you worked corporate. What does that mean?
I worked in healthcare, so it was like a corporate job,
just like a desk job.
A desk job. I was doing also like temping at the time, and it was just I remember seeing somebody like celebrating their 15th year in the same office, and I was like, holy shit!
Oh my God. I had an office job in Glendale when I first moved here, and I would have nightmares because I had to sort mail in all the mail slots, and every person in the office had initials, and I would just. You had to memorize the initial, like a code. And I would just have nightmares about these codes, these number codes, and like putting the mail in the slot and getting it right. Anyway, yeah, you're giving me flashbacks.
No, I mean, that stuff is intense.
Kind of work.
Well, it's crazy because most of that shit is dying out too. Like that whole thing that existed when I started to like in earnest, I was like, okay, I am an artist. I've always been, like my dad, I remember when I decided to go to art school, he told me that he had never seen me happier than when they took me, like when I was 18, we went to DC because I think as a family we were all moving there. Mm-hmm. And at the National Gallery they had a Calder show. Oh, yeah. And he was like, I've never seen you more excited than with that, and so it was that was the moment, that around that time, like 22. Then I went to study in Florence. I did a lot of plein air drawing, plein air painting. And yeah, and then...
Did you carry around a little foldable easel? No,
I was too cool for that.
Okay.
I was hip. That was young hobby. It was me and another dude named Seth Wiener and like maybe 6 other guys in a school full of like all girls.
Were they Americans?
It was an American school.
Okay.
And like not that I got like crazy, you know, I had one girlfriend the whole time, but it was pretty nice.
You were in like a one relationship?
I was in one relationship that the whole time.
Okay. So what was this a 4-year program?
No, it was a 2-year thing. And then or actually it was a year program. Or maybe it was it was a year program and then I came back and then went to Florida International University.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then
And what's that like?
We can skip that. I've talked about it a lot on the podcast. Okay. It was not a fun experience, but I do want to share. It's just it's mostly known for engineering, the school.
Okay.
So it's a lot of angry tenured professors that I've confirmed with other people are not very good people. But no. And then I came here and I was like not making art. I had that receipt printer piece in my head for like 4 years and never made it. I would tell, you know, I'm not going to say who because I don't want to get in trouble, but I would tell people in my circle at the time that about that piece. And they were like, that's a waste of money. You know, you're not going to...
A waste of money?
Yeah, the receipt printer piece that I showed at
you'd have to purchase the...
Yeah, and it was like, and those things never really work out the way you want them. So I listened to that for a while. I was trying to just find work in like anything because I had just moved in 2008. And
so you were in Miami that whole time?
Yeah, from 2004 to 2008. And then before that, I was in DC. I went to I lived in Maryland and went to community college there for a while.
Oh, okay.
And I remember I had an art teacher there, and I told her that I was thinking about doing art, and she was like, "Don't."
Really? Why? It's too hard.
It's like a miserable life is essentially the concept. And I was such a cocky little dick. I was like, in my head, I was like, that's just because your work sucks. You know?
Did you not like their work?
I mean, I didn't hate their work.
Did you even know what their work was? Or
I would say that they, regardless of the quality of the work, they were probably trying to, like, their heart was probably in the right place, you know, because regardless of how good your work is, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna, you know, you have to learn other skills outside of making art if you want to have some kind of success in the art world, right? I would imagine, like, you need to...
You gotta pay the bills.
Yeah, and you also just need to be able to, like I think, I don't know. I think it's different to... it's just funny to me that an art teacher at community college was like, no, because she's probably a tenured professor, or not a tenured professor, she's probably an adjunct. And now all of our friends, or a lot of our friends are adjuncts, and they're like, and I'm not like sitting here going like, Jesus, I can't wait to join the ranks, you know? It's a tough life.
Okay, so what made you come to LA?
The art scene.
The art scene?
Yeah, even though
in 2008? Okay.
Yeah, because I moved into Culver City. That was around the time that LA lacks art, and like that whole
Is that why you moved to Culver City?
100%, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Oh. And that's the house where we met at.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
10 years later? 2016?
it was, last time we talked was 7 years, but I don't know how long ago would that...
You lived there in 2008? That's where you moved into?
Yeah, I moved in there in 2000. 10 years ago. I thought we were talking...
8 years later, I met you there.
Yeah.
Okay, 8 years after. You lived there 8 years?
I lived there a long fucking time, for sure. Yeah. And then all this... Yeah. I was there for a bit, and it was cool, but like... being close to that scene didn't necessarily make it easy to network or meet people, especially because the stakes in that scene are pretty high. You know, like all of those spaces are like, or at the time, it was like Blum and Poe level.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, no, I understand.
But
so what did you do in LA back then?
Like work-wise?
Sure.
You don't remember that?
I know
was a
you
soccer?
taught soccer.
Yeah,
to
I was like a
little
soccer
kids.
coach for
was
a
it
long
like
time.
AYSO or
No.
No.
You don't get paid for AYSO.
Oh, I don't know. Sorry, I have no idea.
those guys are.
That's volunteer.
Those are
that's like parents.
Dad coaches. Yeah.
What were you?
I was a club coach.
What's that?
I worked year round and trained every freaking week, and then had like summer league or summer tournaments, winter leagues, spring
Was it
leagues.
through the schools?
No. This is
it's
like
a private program.
This was like super expensive.
Oh,
like yeah,
but it's just extracurricular for kids, like after school.
Yeah, it's like it's the first step up, or I guess like the American soccer system is different than the one in Europe, but basically it's like if you want your kids to develop as a player, it's the thing you do after AYSO, and then there's academy, and then there's the the teams.
I never got past AYSO.
No, yeah. Well, but there's like famous professional players like in the women's team from like the early 90s that or from the early 2000s, I guess, that were AYSO players. I forget, it's Shannon McMillan, I think. Anyway,
you're talking to the wrong person.
I was into women's soccer before.
No, that's cool. Awesome. So wait, do you play soccer?
Not anymore. I mean, it's fun, but like the scene gets kind of toxic out here and pretty competitive.
Oh.
Like the pickup games. It becomes weird, and then everybody starts having sex with each other, and it becomes
Stop.
Yeah, no. It's
oh shit. Okay.
Yeah, but those were my early social circles. My pre-art social circles were all like soccer people and networking like that, or just meeting people through meetups like that. In fact, the first thing that I did socially when I got out here was play a soccer game.
Oh.
Not that I was like a genius of soccer, but it was all right.
Yeah. I mean, it seems fun. Did you have shin guards? Sorry.
This is a sport podcast, clearly.
Just curious if you still have your shin guards.
No, they're stinky.
So, okay, well, let's talk about your art a little bit more, because I feel like nobody
ever
knows about it. So, first of all, did you have like a thesis show or anything at your university?
Yeah, we had a group show.
What did you do?
What
is it? What is that?
It was an instruction manual based, like it's appropriated images from the PDF manuals that that like would come with products. So I made like a triptych or quadriptych. I think it might have been 4 panels.
Mm-hmm.
It was very much inspired by Christian art, but also comic books, which to me are basically the same things.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a narrative of like
wait. What are the same things?
Or like early like Renaissance Christian religious art
and
comic books.
Okay.
Like in fact it gets to the point where you're like, you have the origin of Batman a million different times, and you have like a million different enunciations, right? Like that was like back then, that's how you got paid to be an artist. You made religious work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you tried to subvert it by making it a little sexy,
mm-hmm.
And then the rich people were like, but yeah, so it was, I mean, it was cool. I definitely think that my work has gotten better since then, but I think the stuff that I was doing around the time that we met was a lot more installation and sculptural based. I think now that conceptual, yeah. I don't think that I've completely abandoned the conceptual stuff. I'm just not making it at the same rate as I used to. Like I still have things that I'm working on that are related to that. But yeah, at the moment I'm mostly painting, but like I said, it's all very much about like the kind of buildings that I grew up in, which are very like the suburbs in Italy are not single family homes. They're all they're all like
you're saying this is what your work
these paintings that I'm
now.
doing. Yeah, these are the paintings that I'm doing now. They're kind of So like they're a little bit of a play on that, on these like really sci-fi futuristic kind of buildings that I grew up in. Like my brother made a movie in our neighborhood because it was so sci-fi looking. It's called Vidifon, and it's about two people that are having a relationship via FaceTime, I guess now you would call it, but like before all that happened.
Okay.
So this was like, I don't know, that's this, but anyway, so when he shot that movie, he like for film school, he went back to Italy and like filmed in our neighborhood because it was just like these crazy, it was, I mean, dude, it was
like high-rise apartments.
I mean, I guess high rise. And they weren't like super tall. I can't imagine they were like, you know, going up past 12 stories. But
okay.
But you know, yeah, like when my father passed away, one of my friends from back in Italy messaged me and he was like, "Hey, dude, I remember the hot dogs at your birthday party on that because we lived on the first floor, and there was like this crazy fields with a castle in the back." And then it's insane. It's almost like it's surreal to like look back and remember because I don't think, first of all, it's like the latchkeyness of our childhood, it's probably not non-existent anymore. But like, yeah, it was a neighborhood and we could like go super far from the house. But like, yeah, and then it was.
So you were sort of in the countryside? No.
We were fuori porta, which means outside of the gate. So Rome, the original Rome has a gate, you know, like has the Roman walls around it. And we were in a part called Eur, which is like, I don't know if the part that we were at was like this, but there used to be marshlands.
Okay.
That Mussolini in the it's like when you go to Italy, the fascist architecture is just as prominent because they didn't tear that stuff down because they didn't want to be like, hey, let's erase history, right? So all of those buildings are, you know, kind of are still up there. So like it's in the more modern place, but it's like the architecture's still pretty monumental, you know, pretty like crazy styles. So yeah, so like that is basically like when, you know, I had a birthday party there and it was like when I don't even know how old I was, but we were like little kids and my mom was worried that kids would jump off the balcony because like they were throwing shit off. And we went on like an adventure walk in the back to like there were Roman ruins just kind of chilling like that, like no name ruins that like people wouldn't visit and stuff like that. So yeah, like that stuff is kind of what is like is in the work, which is, I mean, it's funny because it's like it's not presently nostalgic, right? I'm not necessarily like, oh, look back and like feel wispy with it, but that is kind of where it comes from, you know, like it's not presented that way, but it is a little bit of this like idealized, like really efficient neighborhoods that were you know, residential areas on top of commercial spaces. So you could like, you know, there was a toy store, there was like the paper store, all of this like really quaint but very modernist, you know, like that was always kind of the thing that's interesting about that city is that there's so many different layers of like of past, present, and future. The Città Eterna, Eternal City. So it's like, as a kid and you're a sci-fi nerd, you're living in one of the coolest like sci-fi looking places that also has crazy history. So it was like there's nothing I just can't imagine like have what anybody else's childhood was like, but it was like really cool.
Right. And then that sort of visual language is embedded.
Yeah, the sort of the yeah, I mean it's simplified and very much abstracted, but it is more about like that kind of like that optimism and hope that existed in that kind of architecture as opposed to like what we live with today, which is like really kind of homogenous. You know what I mean? Like like
sort of, but LA, I feel like there are so many strange things sort of bunched together, you know, like there's
LA's been around long enough that a lot of those like suburbs have been like dehomogenized. right? Like, because people will move in and modify their house, right? You know, like over here, you can't have a chimney built, but if a house has a chimney, they'll like tear down the entire house, keep the chimney,
Yes, they will.
and build a house around it.
Yeah, well,
right?
now there's so much development. But wait, so how was it going from Italy to Miami? I feel like there's definitely some crazy architecture there and colors. I mean, your colors to me, I would have thought were Miami based.
Yeah, I would say,
guess.
yeah, I think palette wise, probably, you know, that's definitely the Florida stuff showing up. But I don't know, like to me, you know, like to me, these paintings are a little bit tied to that thing that I did at the Lambi, the thing that you threw together.
The soy sauce?
The soy sauce packets, you know, because that's also residential stuff. Has to do with dwelling, kind of, you know, the repetition of the space. Like I'm more interested in connecting with people about how they live than I am about like necessarily being preachy. You know, like, so the soy sauce, I think, especially during COVID, a lot of people were excited because they were like ordering out a lot. And there was soy sauce packets on this like structure literally made out of drywall, which made it heavy as shit and made me have to destroy it.
It was so heavy.
It was so heavy, and
it was cool. I liked it.
But it was such a mess. I would have only done that in a parking lot. I've never recreated. You noticed, you saw some that I have out here.
I did.
But yeah.
Was there ever a soy sauce shortage during the pandemic?
No.
I feel like there were different things that there were definitely shortages of.
Oh yeah, toilet paper for one.
Oh yeah.
But like I don't necessarily think that this stuff is that far removed from the receipt printer and the mail stuff, even though the formatting is different. Like I don't know that I'm going to paint for the rest of my life, you know?
Okay.
I think I'm just still like painting is just the best way to make these particular things. But I'm still interested in like I don't want to give projects away that I haven't like manifested yet.
You don't have to. Yeah.
But I'm still interested in just kind of the everyday experience of being like a person in this realm that maybe does or doesn't make sense, but at least we can laugh at it, you know, which I think is kind of what the junk mail piece, you know, it's definitely about waste in some ways, but it's not like, hey, it becomes an archive, so you're making it important, right?
Right.
So those concerns are really interesting to me still. I just don't necessarily have the brain capacity to work in that modality, because that's like conceptual. Do you make conceptual work? I mean, I know I'm familiar with your work, but like, and it is conceptual, but have you ever like worked on something where you like go to a store and you buy a printer and stuff like that? It's like, it's not a practice necessarily.
Go to a store and buy a printer. Oh, you mean because of the piece? Yeah, I know what you're saying.
You know, like that. Yeah. Those pieces. The conceptual stuff can sit in your head for a long time until you're ready to execute. Whereas like the painting side is more of a practice, makes me feel day to day more like an artist. The drawing side, honestly, these paintings are really just drawings to me, right? They're just drawn with paint. But
okay.
Yeah.
How has it been sort of balancing or figuring out the podcast alongside your art work?
It's difficult because it comes out every week.
The show. Do you feel like the show just like takes over and then the other stuff is on the back burner?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, at different points, you know.
But you're in a rhythm with the show now.
I think so, yeah. I figure, you know, along the way, you figure out how to make time for yourself when you're doing something like this. Right now, a part of the reason that I'm going insane is that I haven't gone ahead and edited Into the Future. So I don't have a bank of edited... I have a backlog of episodes, but I don't have them ready to go. Whenever I have them ready to go...
Feel good.
I'm blissful.
So you've essentially given yourself a tremendous amount of work.
Yeah. No, that's why I you know, it's hard for me to be like, it's not successful in a capitalist sense, but in a satisfaction, like personal satisfaction sense, it is.
So you've created an archive.
Essentially, yeah.
But you don't see this as being related to your work.
I do.
Yeah.
At this point, that's why early on I used to think about it. I mean, it's a skill and a craft, right? That I'm hopefully getting better at, and most people don't even know my work, right? So, it's hard to say that it's not. It is a practice in the like most real sense of it.
The podcast?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It is literally a practice, right?
Yeah.
Whether or not I'm recording an episode every week or I'm banking episodes to have it, there's still a process to it, right? There's recording, then there's putting out the episode, editing or post-production, and then there's promoting it. I feel like the stuff that I'm finally getting to is the promotion, right? But once you get into that side of it, it becomes less about, it becomes less creative, essentially. It's more about.
You mean all the tech stuff that comes along with it, like all the logistics, all the editing? Because the conversation is still.
Yeah, no, the conversation is still, I mean, not even, I think even putting out the episode is still part of the practical side of it. I think that one of the things that is difficult is to constantly, like, for me, nothing is more horrifying than sitting down and listening to my entire archive, because I've heard it so fucking much, So, like, it gives me great joy when I interview someone. And when I go back and I listen to the episode, that's great too. Once I start getting into like editing down little clips and getting into that minutia, that can be really rewarding, but it's also very, it's like the 7 millionth time I've heard us say the same shit,
Yeah.
And so,
yeah.
So it's actually interesting, I mean, in that sense, like people get to enjoy the product. I feel like with an art piece, like when I finished that painting and I posted it and it got likes on Instagram, like the A to B to that is a lot more direct. Whereas like, just listening to it, there's ultimately like, I'm only so interested in myself.
Okay. Yeah.
And what I have
How much editing do you do?
Not that much, but I have to edit all the cameras together, and all the visual stuff. So a lot of the stuff that's extra work is that promotional stuff, right? Because even then, let's say I edit an entire episode with video and all of that, like 17 people might watch it, 72 people might watch it. It depends on how well I edit the intro and all of that to keep to hold retention.
You find a correlation between how well you edit it and the listenership?
How well I signpost the episode. So how well I put a 30-second clip before an episode being like, this is what we're talking about. But that can be like tricky, right? And it's time consuming, and right now I'm like swamped. So whenever I'm like drowning like this, I'm like promotion always comes to the last. The show comes out first and all of that, all the other stuff. So it's like, I honestly don't even know if people are going to find this interesting. This episode,
this one?
Yeah. Like not to be self-deprecating or anything like that, but like, who knows on a personal level how interested people are going to be with the behind the scenes of this show. You know what I mean? Like,
well, it doesn't matter.
No. I mean, trust me, I'm not worried on an episode by episode basis. I'm not worried about how well an individual episode performs. And typically, like, they tend to do relationally to each other. They tend to do pretty much similarly, if I'm typically getting 70 downloads per episode, I'm getting 70 downloads per episode. I'm not, but yeah, I mean, like, it's possible no one gives a shit
Javier.
on how this is done. Although, I mean, because we're getting very niche into like.
I was curious.
Oh, no,
I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay. Well,
No. I'm not criticizing you for asking me that question.
I'll move on.
No, that's not what I meant.
I'm just kidding. Okay. So wait. So do you still have topics?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I always encourage people to have a topic. If they don't, they're left to my own devices, and I'm going to ask them what I want to know about, So
okay. Yeah. Because I sort of was sensing like maybe you had a topic initially, like way back when I had the singularity topic, and then we would discuss it. And then it seemed like the people you were interviewing came up with the topic.
Yeah.
So there was a sort of reversal there that happened.
Again, your episode is like an anomaly.
Unique. Okay.
Like it's literally one episode where it happened like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I did it that way because I didn't want to put the pressure on someone else to have something interesting to say. I've done other ones where I have, like, for example, I had one where I had Josh Shadle on to talk about his stuff, and I feel like the difference between your episode and that episode is that ours was more fun and his was more informational and like a typical episode. So for the live shows, I'll probably go back to doing, like if I do OPAF again, I would probably pick the topic myself, just because it can be a little bit more cheeky. A little bit more dumb, like, because even though I was the informed one, I was still kind of dumb.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you have planned
for the next year?
Yeah.
It's I basically right now I'm learning how to do the YouTube side of it, because I kind of understand how to get people to listen to the audio side of things. The video I'm still working on, and trying to figure out how to make that more attractive to people. I think that one of the things that I realized doing at people's studios is that a lot of times people's studios are not photogenic, and so it can.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. There's so much.
Yeah, and then they're just noisy. So
like my studio.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking of doing is just sprucing this place up so that it's a little bit more recognizable when you see it.
Okay.
Like when you're scrolling through YouTube, and and there's
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't turn off my phone.
Oh no, I thought it was one of the cameras.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. This is probably going to be my least favorite episode to edit, by the way. but yeah, no, no, like 100%. I did not think this through. Like,
well, you're just the interviewee.
I know, but like, most of my guests don't have to listen to themselves while they are editing. In fact, a lot of guests never even listen to their own episode, even though they listen to the show.
Yeah.
So, but so I think that that's basically it. Like, the goal is to just get as many people listening to this as possible and sell out. Like, just make money off of whatever I'm going to be selling you, gambling sites. No, that's going to be interesting.
Simply Safe.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, that's going to be interesting. Like, who am I cool with? Am I going to do 23andMe? No.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Because you, as a personal friend, have heard me go on a few rants about how crazy the world is, and things that I could never say on the podcast. But what I do like is that even though I'm crazy, you guys are still like, and that you hold out, and then a few months later, you're like, oh wait, he was right.
So, do you have a favorite episode?
Oh my God, I would have to be able to remember.
Nothing stands out.
No, I mean, look, I asked people online what episodes. I don't quite yet have a relationship with people on the that listen to the show where they're comfortable, like, saying, like, interacting. Because you and Ben and I, Ben and I were in the car, and he proposed that, and I was like, I don't think that's gonna work. And
what did he propose?
He proposed, like, asking guests, asking people for questions for this episode, you know, like, what do you want to know?
Oh.
And I didn't get any, but I mean, I asked once and then I got shy because I didn't get any. But one person was meant, like, I asked what episodes do people like, and one of the things that's been most popular is the Mario Vasquez episode among listeners. You know, I really like him. I really learned a lot from him. I think that you and I can relate to sort of the feeling that, or basically, one of the things that he said, which I've said it before on the podcast, is that go where you're wanted and go where you're loved, which I definitely take to heart. Like, if there's an event where it's even like maybe sketchy that I might run into somebody that I don't want to see, I'm just like, you know, like why do that to myself? Why would I want to go somewhere that is like uncomfortable around me, you know? But yeah, I'm sorry, what was the question? Was there a question?
No, I mean, just favorite moment of the
episode.
You said Mario Vasquez.
Mario Vasquez. I think there's a lot of highlights. I think instead of episodes, I just remember like landmark moments. I remember meeting Alex Andrew Sanchez and Jackie Perez, who are good friends, and I remember those things more than particular episodes. In fact, one of the things that I started doing at some point, it was like, I just don't think of episodes. Like, if after I record this, I'm not going to think about it, you know, because why would I torture myself until
I won't either then.
No, no. Why would I torture myself? You're fine. You're
going to have to edit out my laughing.
No, your laughing is great. You do have a very particular laugh though.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And
well, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, what were you going to say?
You. No.
And look, I have had some trying moments. Like I didn't think through the public aspect of it. I just liked podcasting, and I liked the intimacy of podcasting, and I liked the intimacy of having an audience and having an intimate relationship with my audience. To this point, it hasn't. It's not at it's at a place where it trips me out the way that people perceive me when they tell me, like, you know, like, people will come on the show and they'll thank me and they'll give me a really sincere thank you and like very genuine appreciation for what the show is, and that's when I kind of get a sense of like how it's being consumed, because for the most part I have no clue. I just, you know, for me on my end, it's just downloads, and I'm like, I guess it's doing good, right? And so when I get feedback like that, it's jarring, you know, like in a good way.
It's rewarding.
And it's jarring, and but I don't think that I've caught up to, like, I think there's definitely a huge gap in how I perceive myself and the work that I'm doing, and how other people outside that don't get behind the scenes see just the veneer of it. And it's interesting to me to see it like that, because ultimately all there is to consume is the episodes themselves, right? One of the things, you know, like, unless you have a follow-up, one of the things that I did want to talk about was that, like, you know, my dad and I had not been super close up until like 6 months before he passed, right? And he had just gotten into the show, and like it was the first time that I felt like he could actually see me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to like keep composure, but
well, he could.
But that was like, you know, to be able to break out of those dynamics is
Yeah. I feel like when my parents get any insight into my life, I don't give it to them necessarily. And so when when you find a way in, this is a perfect example.
I didn't know that would happen.
Yeah.
And it was like the end note, You know, he was like into it. He wanted to support it. He was like, let me give you some money so that you can buy gear. He bought me like a really fancy computer.
Yeah.
And I think that
he was proud of you. You're doing a thing. You know?
Yeah. And I think that is like the biggest trip that I'm on right now. You know, like I do on a day-to-day basis, like it's always easy to remember and fixate on like negative experiences, but generally speaking, most people are like really kind, you know, and really like grateful. And like people will say things that like just blows my mind. Like, thank you for doing this. And you know, if you don't do it, someone else will. And that is like, so I think,
or no one will,
or no one will do this. Wait, what?
Yeah. I mean, you're doing something specific.
Yeah.
And maybe somebody else would do it, or it wouldn't exist. So you created something that didn't exist.
Yeah, and I definitely care about it, and I definitely care about like it's made me a different person, you know, like and it continues to make me have to accept that I work hard. Even though I spent all my life telling myself that I'm a lazy piece of shit. You know, and I feel like a lot of people have that feeling, you know, but I'm trying to deprogram myself from that. But yeah. But I mean, that's basically all I can give you at this point. I almost cried, so I think we're done. But yeah, it's a crazy thing. 200 episodes, man. It still hasn't registered. You know, it's like it's been a long fucking ride.
Yeah,
5 years is a long time.
It is a long time. Yeah, it's a lot of episodes.
Yeah,
yeah. You should be proud of yourself.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Well, you are one of my favorite people. You are definitely one of the. I don't think there's anyone in the art scene that I trust more than you. Just because we've been, you know, not only have we been through a lot of stuff together, but you've seen me go through stuff, and like, I really appreciate, it's nice to have a friend that can validate you, you know? So when we were talking about doing this, you were like, why don't you get someone famous? And I was like,
someone better.
We
both have imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I don't know if it's imposter syndrome. I just don't think I understand what, I think it's a discrepancy between how the show is made and how it's consumed. And I don't participate in the consumption, you know? But I think that I like, you know, I promised that I was going to pressure you to start Made in LA again. But, I think you know, like, I mean, this show doesn't come out of anything if not for that. I interviewed my friend who was in town during Made in LA, who is if you want to hear people talk about you behind your back in positive ways, is go listen to the Artist Way episode with Natasha. She was in town, and like I took her to, she was bored, so I took her and her friend to a bunch of the stuff that I did, nice. That I went. You remember how much stuff I went that year. And she loved it. So, I mean, I don't think that, like, I think you really have empowered a lot of this, you know, like early on, it's hard to take credit for something like that. I can't
take credit, but I'm glad it inspired you to do this. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I think that
was the only point of Made in LA in some ways, was
to inspire people.
Yeah, just to like do it yourself.
So do it again, and you'll get another. You'll have more Javiers out in the world.
Okay.
No, I mean, I know it's tough. It's especially like the double dutch of getting back into something, because I told you, I stopped for 6 months.
Yeah.
I think this is maybe the most I've ever spoken on an episode. This is making me
so, your moment.
This is so uncomfortable.
We can end.
No, we can.
But no, this is good. I'm glad we chatted. I'm glad that you told me those were based on buildings in Italy.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't know that.
You have purchased some of them.
I know.
So you and Ben are huge supporters. So yeah. And I think that's the other, you know, going back to your question about like, what's next? It's like, next is that. Next, I'm going to be spending some time with my mom, and I'm going to make, because she's also an artist, I'm going to make her, and we're going to do a buddy system to do this, like how do you sell your own art online, you know,
Ooh.
it's interesting. We know some people, like, I don't know. Do you know Mary Little, the artist in the Bendix? Like, she is like,
I know.
A promotion machine, you know, and one of the people that I want to talk to is her. You know, I want to be like, how do you do?
She did Made in. I met her through Made in LA.
Oh, really? Yeah. She's a gangster, dude. Well, one of the things that I like is that she makes her work in series. So you can buy like an object that is a series of 5. I think that's really interesting. But so I think that's basically, I want to learn how to, because I love the idea of the gallery scene and I love all of that. But, you know, that sounds like a lot of work to get into those places, and I don't necessarily know how that happens, but it seems easier to just sell people shit. But I don't know. I mean, it depends on demand too, but that's definitely over the next year. One of the things, it's not like I'm trying to, I think it's probably going to be easier to commercialize selling a few pieces here and there versus the long project of getting this monetized, you know?
Do you feel like you do one or the other and you can't do both?
Nah,
side by side.
I do both.
You do,
yeah.
Okay.
I'll edit, and the problem is sometimes editing is less fun than painting, so I'll just you know fall behind on that.
Right.
But anyway, thank you so much, Molly.
No, thank you.
I can't tell you how much I love you and your baby daddy. you guys are really...
I'll speak for him. We love you too.
No, it's been a really amazing. We met through Made in LA, and I think that you really have been one of the best friends that I've had in the whole time that I've been doing the show. Seriously. So check out Molly Schulman, at Molly Shoelace. And at Made in LA. By the way, we didn't even talk about it. I went
Made in .LA.
Made in .LA.
I think so.
I went to at Made in LA, or I went to Made in LA with Made in LA.
We went to the Hammer. We went to the Hammer show.
Oh my God, that selfie! I did not share it.
It's another conversation. Let's quit while we're ahead.
Yeah. All right, we'll be back next week with another guest and another topic that may or may not be art related. And thank you so much for listening. 200 episodes. Anybody that's ever listened to even 1 second of an episode, you feed me with like joy and ambition, and it matters. Like it's a crazy thing to think that people listen to me talk. That is fucking mind blowing. Like that, I think we ended just pinning down what blows my mind about this whole thing, that anyone listens to this is insane. So thank you so much. 200 episodes. I really appreciate it, guys. I would not be doing it if you guys didn't listen. So thank you.
You totally would, though. In a way.
You're right. I mean, I kind of have. All right, we'll end it there. Thank you so much. We'll be back next week.